Once upon a time in the vast open plains of Africa, there lived a tribe of Maasai warriors who were renowned for their skills in guiding their valuable cattle across the savannah. One day, a young herder was given the responsibility of leading a massive herd of cattle over 30 miles to a new pasture. The journey was long and fraught with danger, and the herder had to rely on his wits and his knowledge of the land to ensure the safety of his flock. But after a few hours, the young herder started to feel the weight of the task before him. The sun beat down on his back, and the endless sea of cattle seemed to stretch on forever. He glanced at the distant horizon, wondering if they would ever reach their destination. But then he remembered the wisdom of his ancestors, the true Maasai way of moving, which taught him a secret that helped him to win against all odds. So now our story begins. The tale of the Maasai warrior who discovered that to go fast, you have to go slow. It was just another ordinary day for a young Maasai warrior. Life on the savannah was tough, and the warriors were constantly on the move, herding their cattle and protecting them from predators. But today was different. The warriors had to lead their cattle over 30 miles to a new grazing land, and the journey promised to be both long and perilous. Despite the challenges ahead, the young warrior was eager to prove himself. He had heard stories of his ancestors' bravery and skill, and he wanted to make them proud. With a determined look on his face, he led his cattle out of their enclosure and onto the dusty path that stretched before them. As the cattle moved forward, the young herder soon realized that the journey was going to be more challenging than he had anticipated. The herd was massive, and the endless sea of animals seemed to stretch on forever. The heat of the sun beat down on his back, and the young herder began to feel the weight of the task before him. He glanced at the distant horizon, wondering if they would ever reach their destination. It was at this moment that the young herder felt the urge to go faster. He knew that the journey was going to be long and arduous, and he wanted to get it over with as soon as possible. But then he remembered the wisdom of his ancestors, the true Maasai way of moving, which taught him that sometimes going slower could actually be faster. He recalled a story his grandfather had told him about a similar journey they had undertaken many years ago. They had been traveling for days, and the cattle were starting to become exhausted. Just when they thought they couldn't go on any longer, they had found a small oasis with fresh water and lush vegetation. Despite being thirsty and hungry, they had resisted the urge to eat or drink and had continued on their journey. And sure enough, they had soon stumbled upon a vast and beautiful valley where they could finally rest and recover. Now realizing that pushing his cattle any further would only jeopardize their well-being and potentially the success of the entire journey, he stopped the herd and allowed them to rest and graze. He knew that a journey of this magnitude required patience and perseverance, and he was determined to honor the traditions of his ancestors. As the cattle grazed peacefully, the young herder noticed a group of birds flying overhead. They were heading in the same direction as they were traveling, and the herder knew that they must be headed towards water. Following the birds, he soon came across a small stream where the cattle could quench their thirst and regain their strength. The herder did not push his animals to exhaustion or ignore their needs, but instead moved at the deliberate pace of the slowest and weakest animal in his flock. He knew that sacrificing the well-being of even one animal for the sake of speed was a loss that jeopardized the whole. Every step of the way, he allowed the herd to stop and graze on every patch of grass and drink from every small stream. To the young herder, these were not delays but essential components of the journey. He understood that the true measure of a journey was not the speed at which they traveled, but the success of the entire herd's arrival, safe and sound. And so he continued on, patiently guiding his cattle towards their destination, trusting in the wisdom of the old ways. As the sun began its slow descent, the young herder knew that they had to find somewhere safe to rest for the night. He scanned the horizon, searching for a place where his cattle could rest and recover from their long journey. Just when the sky was beginning to darken, he spotted a small grove of trees in the distance. With renewed hope, he led his cattle towards the trees, and soon they were able to settle down for the night. The young herder kept watch over the herd, making sure that they were safe from any potential predators. And as the stars twinkled above them, he felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had followed the teachings of his ancestors, and so far they had made it through the journey unscathed. The next morning, the young herder awoke to the sound of birds chirping and the gentle rustling of leaves. The sky was clear and the air was filled with the promise of a new day. He stretched his muscles, feeling the satisfaction of knowing that they had made it through the night safely. With renewed energy, he got up and started tending to the cattle, making sure they were ready to continue their journey. As the herd began to stir, the young herder knew that it was time to move forward. He looked towards the east, where the sun was just beginning to rise, and started leading the cattle in the direction of their destination. With each step, the young herder felt a sense of determination and focus. He knew that they still had a long way to go, but he was confident that they would make it. The cattle moved steadily forward, and the young herder kept a watchful eye on them, making sure they were doing well. He stopped frequently to allow the herd to graze and drink, and he took care to guide them away from any potential dangers. As the day wore on, the young herder started to feel the familiar sensation of fatigue setting in. The sun beat down on his back, and he could feel the weight of the cattle's heavy steps following him. But he pressed on, knowing that they were almost there. Finally, as the sky began to turn orange, the young herder saw it, the lush green pasture that lay before him. With a surge of adrenaline, he led the cattle towards the pasture, and soon they were able to enter the safety of the enclosed area. The young herder stood at the entrance, surveying the pasture before him. He could see the lush green grass swaying in the gentle breeze, and he knew that his cattle would be able to rest and recover here. He had made it. After days of hard work and dedication, he had successfully guided his cattle to their destination. He felt a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over him, knowing that he had honored the traditions of his ancestors and the wisdom of the old ways. The cattle were let loose to graze and roam in the open pasture. The young herder watched as they happily munched on the fresh grass, their bodies relaxing after days of travel. He smiled, knowing that they had made it. He had successfully completed the journey, and he had learned a valuable lesson along the way. The young herder had discovered that sometimes going faster meant going slower. He had learned that rushing his cattle or ignoring their needs would only jeopardize their well-being and the success of their journey. But by moving at the deliberate pace of the slowest and weakest animal in his flock, he had ensured the safety and well-being of the entire herd. He had listened to the wisdom of his ancestors and the teachings of the true Maasai way of moving, and he had emerged victorious. As the sun set over the horizon, the young herder sat down on a nearby rock, reflecting on the journey he had just undertaken. He thought about the challenges he had faced and the lessons he had learned, and he felt a sense of gratitude for the wisdom of his ancestors. He knew that without their teachings, he may not have been able to succeed. Looking out at the peaceful herd grazing in the pasture, the young herder felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. He had proven himself not only to others, but to himself, that he was a capable and patient herder. He had discovered the secret that had allowed the Maasai warriors to thrive for generations, the secret that had enabled them to conquer the challenges of the savannah and protect their valuable cattle. And as the young herder settled in for the night, he knew that he was part of a long and proud tradition. He was a Maasai warrior, and he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. So, my friend, remember the tale of the young Maasai warrior, and let it be a reminder to you that sometimes going faster means going slower. Embrace the journey, honor the process, and trust in your ability to succeed. And as you navigate the challenges of life, keep moving forward with patience and determination. You never know what victories await you. And remember, greatness is a daily verb. Rise little by little.